Keto high-fat foods. How do you choose the right foods with the right fats so that you can maintain keto as a healthy lifestyle? Coming right up. So first of all, keto isn't so much about eating more fat as it is about eating less carbohydrates. So just real quick, the basics. Ketones is the result of fat burning. And it's not that you eat more fat, it's that you eat less carbs so that the body starts to learn how to burn fats again. And then ideally, you don't want to eat so much fat that your body doesn't have to burn fat off the body. So if your goal is to lose weight, then you can still eat too much fat on keto. So the goal is to get the body to burn the fat off the body and just supply enough fats to feel full. So the rule is you start off with vegetables, you eat moderate protein, and then you fill up with fats until you're full, but don't go stuffing yourself because then your body still isn't going to go burn the fat off the body. So again, it's not about more fat, it's about less carbs. But we know that if we eat about 5% net carbs, if we have about 20-30 grams of net carbs, we end up about 5% of calories from carbs, and we will get into, for most people, we'll get into ketosis. But then we also know that proteins shouldn't be more than 20 probably, because proteins also can turn into sugar and trigger insulin. So those are the two things that we're looking for: less than 5% carbs and 15 to 20% protein. And then it just means that the rest has to come from fat. Okay? So that's the principle behind it. So let's look at some of the foods here. So if we eat fat or an oil, so here we're talking about butter, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, lard, ghee, some kind of natural fat that hasn't been processed. So butter, Evo, coconut oil, they're basically still the same molecular structure as in the plant that grew them. Or in the case of butter, of course, it came from an animal. Same thing with lard and ghee. They're not much changed. We haven't processed the fat so much that they are damaged. And that's why we want to stay away from the vegetable oils, the safflower, the soybean, the canola oil, etc., because they're so heavily processed. So these foods, they have 100% weight by fat. Oils have about 100%. Butter is about 80 to 85%, but the rest is water. So percentage-wise, 100% of the calories come from fat. Then when we look at one of the most popular keto foods, avocado, it has 15% fat by weight. So all of these numbers are in grams per 100 grams. So it's percentage by weight and percentage by calories. Avocado is 15% fat by weight, 2% protein, and 2% net carbs. So that gives us 90% of calories from fat, 5% from protein, and 5% from carbohydrate. So if we see we're trying to stay below 5% here out of total calories from carbs, we could essentially eat all avocado and still stay below that level. So again, we don't try to eat just one food, but we want to try to get a wide variety of foods. So don't just pick one and say, ooh, that's the best number, I'm going to eat nothing but that. Your body likes variety. Egg is another very popular one. 10 grams of fat, 12 grams of protein, 0.7 grams of carbs. There's a little bit of carb in the yolk, but total we get 62% from fat, 36% of calories from protein, and only 2% from carbs. So again, if we ate all eggs, we'd end up a little bit high on the protein. We might slip out of ketosis, but the idea is to get a variety. Sour cream, 20 grams of fat, 2%, 2 grams of protein, 3.5 grams of net carbs. Percentage-wise, we get 89% of the calories from fat, 4% from protein, and 7% from carbs. Coconut cream is very, very close to those numbers, but it's the vegetable source, and we get essentially the same numbers there. Then we look at some of the meat products, meat and fish. So we get, I picked, just as an example, ground beef, 15% fat, has 20% protein, no carbs, 62% of calories from fat, 38 from protein, and 0 from carbohydrate. And all similar meat products are the same. So if you take a fatty lamb chop, like French cut lamb chops, they're going to be about the same. Bacon is going to be really close to the same. Sardines is going to be really close to the same. So what we want to emphasize here is that it's the quality of the food that matters. You need to get this from an animal that was healthy. A lot of people will look for lean meat. And I agree, if you can't get grass-fed organic, then you should probably look for lean. But as long as the animal is healthy, then you want to get the high-fat meat because it's tastier and it's more satisfying. And as long as the animal is healthy, then that fat is healthy as well. So the type of fat in ground beef is going to be similar to that of grass-fed butter. It's not going to be identical, but health-wise, the quality is going to be similar. As long as you don't feed it grain or toxins or anything that's unnatural to the animal, it's not going to hurt you. Then let's go to some nuts. So 3 of my favorites here are macadamia nuts, walnuts, and pecans. And we see that macadamia and pecans have over 70% fat, whereas walnuts have a little bit less. Walnuts have a lot more protein, but they're both very, very good because the carbs, you end up with 3%, 2%, 3%. The only ones that's a little higher is the protein in the walnuts. The other thing that is really good about these 3 nuts is that they taste good raw. You don't have to change, you don't have to process, you don't have to roast these, because when you do, you alter, you oxidize the fatty acids. So these have a lot of polyunsaturated and diunsaturated and monounsaturated fats in them, and therefore they're very sensitive to heat and oxygen. So when you roast nuts, you make them less healthy. The fats become rancid and get damaged to a point. I wanted to talk about a few more nuts here and contrast that. So cashews is one that you want to stay away from. I included it here just as kind of a warning example because even though it has a lot of fat and protein, it's also very high in carbohydrates, almost a third by weight in carbohydrates. So it's got 70% from fat, 13% from protein, but almost 20% of calories from cashews. And that's why a lot of people find it very addictive and it's hard to stop eating cashews. The other part was, again, that cashews don't taste very good raw. You could cook with them to an extent, but for the most part, cashews are roasted, and then again, they're much less healthy than the raw variety. So I would eat cashews very sparingly. Peanuts, kind of the same thing. They're much better as far as the carb value. We got 50% fat, 26% protein, 7% carbs by weight. And the carb percentage of calories is still only 5%. But again, you have to roast them, so it wouldn't be my first choice. And if you eat peanuts, which I do from time to time, make sure that they're organic and they don't have a bunch of chemicals added to them. A lot of dry roasted chemicals are full of MSG chemicals and flavor enhancers. And of course, a lot of commercial peanut butter is going to have sugar added, and it's going to be partially hydrogenated so that oils don't separate. You want to stay far, far away from those. Get the organic, few additives, no additives except salt, and make sure that it separates because otherwise they messed with it. Flax is, again, we've done videos on that before, and here it just fits right into the top class. We have 1% of carbs are from 1% of calories are from carbohydrates. They're 83% from fat. So again, some people are concerned with eating too much flax, and don't look at this and say, oh, that's the best one, I'm going to eat nothing but flax. Eat a couple of tablespoons a day, mix it in with a good variety of different food, lots of vegetables, and you'll be fine. I wanted to add one thing at the end here, because you can also come up with different things. You can make your own mayonnaise. If you make it from good quality oil, it's still a very healthy thing. And one of my favorites is hollandaise sauce. It's a super yummy sauce. You could eat green beans, you could eat asparagus, you could eat broccoli, and just pour on the hollandaise sauce, and you've got a meal right there. And there's a video where I'll show you how to make that. And it has 70% by weight in fat, 6% protein, 2% carbohydrates. And calorie-wise, it's 95% fat, 4% protein, and only 1% of calories from carbohydrates. So there are a lot of good food choices. These are the healthy fats that you want to emphasize, again, with the exception of the cashew that I brought in as the exception. And there is no reason to limit yourself. And it is not that keto is just about eating a bunch of fats like we have talked about, but the fats that you eat, very, very importantly, have to be whole food. They have to be quality foods. If they come from healthy sources, they're good for you. If they come from unhealthy sources, or if they have been processed, if man has changed them in a factory, if we have heated them or changed the chemical properties in any way, then it's not a good food anymore. So I hope this was very helpful. Please leave your comments, share this video, and thanks for watching.